Welcome, everybody. So today we are doing another session of Ask the Hoosiers, but this time, we're going to focus on, after I turn my volume down on my phone, we are going to focus on finding female ancestors. So what I'd like to ask is, during this presentation, if you have any questions or issues about finding some of your female ancestors, or if you even want to give tips, that's fine. Go ahead and leave them in the comments. But we're going to go ahead and just dive right in because we did have a couple of questions that people sent us prior. And so we were able to do a little bit of digging and pull some information together for you guys. So I'm going to let Kaye share her screen and then we're going to go ahead and start on.
Okay, thanks, John Marie. Alrighty. Let's see. Moving everything around. There we go. Okay. Can you see that?
Yep, we're good.
Okay. Welcome to Ask the Hoosier Genealogists, September 2025 edition. We did receive a couple of questions related to finding your female ancestors. So, before we hop into those, we want to share a little background. So, where are the ladies? Genealogists and family historians often face this challenge finding our female ancestors. So, we're going to talk about tips and tricks for locating these sometimes overlooked family members. And we have some fun ladies. You might have ancestors in your family like these fashionable women, or pioneer girl, or who looks like maybe Granny Maxwell with her rifle. So why is it challenging to locate our female ancestors? And I do want to preface what John Marie and I are going to share, that this was assisted with AI, artificial intelligence, helped put the next 3 slides together. And because finding our female ancestors is something that has been studied for years and years and generations, and I really couldn't see the point of reinventing the wheel, so to speak. So I asked AI to help, and this is what it came up with. And after these 3 slides, I have a slide of all the sources that AI used. And at the end of this Facebook Live, this whole presentation, I will make it a PDF and we will share it on Facebook so that you'll have access to the sources for these 3 slides. So, why is it hard to find the ladies? Naming conventions and surnames. So, women changed their surname when they married, and it did cause brick walls for researchers, especially in the past. So, a woman's maiden name, which links her back to her birth family, it can be difficult to find, especially in the older records. And what happened is, once she married, she would tend to disappear from records under her birth name, and she would appear under her husband's name. And I'm sure all of us have seen this. Sometimes you only see her as Mrs. John Smith. So you can feel like you're tracking a whole new person, even if you just have her first name. Multiple marriages. If an ancestor was widowed and remarried, she would change her name again, making it even more challenging to find her across census records and other documents. And I've seen this where she is widowed from her first husband. She remarries, but she uses her first husband's surname as her maiden name. Sometimes. They didn't all do that, but that's one way they can get lost. And many historical documents, like the early census records and deeds, would only list the name of the male head of household. If the wife was mentioned, her first name might be included, but her maiden name was often omitted. I see that a lot in land records. Legal and social status. And in history, a woman's legal status was tied to their male relatives, namely her father, her husband, her brothers, uncles. This meant that took them out of official documents as primary subjects. It was more geared towards the male relatives. So there is a legal doctrine called coverture, where a married woman's legal identity was covered by her husband's. She could not own property, enter into contracts, or sue on her own behalf. This meant her name rarely appeared in legal records, such as deeds and other court documents. Patriarchal records, the creation of historical records from censuses to wills to land records. It was a male-centric activity. Men were the heads of households, the property owners, and the military enlistees, and records were created to document these roles. A woman's presence was often only noted in relation to her father or husband. And again, if the father or the husband were out of the picture, then it might be a brother or an uncle, even a cousin, even an unrelated gentleman. Exclusion from public life. For most of history, women's lives were primarily domestic. They were less likely to be involved in public life, business, or politics, which are the activities that generated many official records. And we can kind of see how that's different today because women are much more involved in these arenas, and keeping records today is much different than in the past. But women are more trackable, I guess, nowadays than they were historically.
Now we're going to go on to record keeping practices. So the way records are created and kept also contribute to the problem of finding our female ancestors. So early census records, if you've dived into census records, you know, the US would only take the head of household, and then you'd have all the little check marks under the age and sex of the person in there. So census records before 1850 is where you'll find those. So anything before then, it's going to be hard to really place. If the ancestor lived in that household, you'd pretty much have to go through, consider what the age is, and then figure out what check mark she probably was. Other household members were simply tallied by age and gender. And it wasn't until the 1850s that you would start to find your female ancestors listed by name. And then there was also the lack of vital records. Many governments did not begin consistently and accurately recording birth, marriage, and death records until the late 19th or early 20th century. So those are going to be hard to find. For earlier periods, you often have to rely more or less on records such as church registries. If you can find a family Bible, it might be recorded in that. But otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to even find that information. And a lot of times that's the same for males. But the females are definitely going to be harder to find. And then there's also inaccurate and incomplete information. So even when a woman's name was included, it could be a nickname, an initial, or just simply misspelled. We've come across that quite a bit with different names, and they might be called Elizabeth, but they went by, there's a bunch of different nicknames for Elizabeth. And so they would go by one of those nicknames and you wouldn't know for sure. Information in obituaries and family Bibles, while valuable, they might not always be completely accurate. So that's something to keep in mind.
I know that this is a new one for me. There was a lady named Margaret, and her family called her Moggy. So
I never heard that one from Margaret.
that's
I would have never guessed it.
that's a new one. That's a new one
Well,
for me.
I had a Dora, and it took me years to figure out and find her, and her name was Dorothea.
Oh, I can see that. Um, and those censuses before 1850, I know in the past, especially if it's a large family, I've had to create a spreadsheet to try to figure out which child was
Which matches with
which.
each age group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because there might be three daughters in the same 10-year span. And
Yeah.
so I've tried that before in an effort to sort them out. But yeah, it can be difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is all the sources for those previous 3 slides. And I thank my AI assistant for helping me out with that. So our first question is from Janet Long. And she wrote in about, she's been searching for 40 years now. And she's tried DNA. Records have been lost in courthouse fires. But she mentioned something in her request, and I italicized it. Women pretty much were shadows in history. And I thought, that's pretty accurate. So her ancestor is Elizabeth Betsy Worley, who married Archibald West. And this is in the very early 19th century. They married in Wayne County, Kentucky, and then they moved to Hendricks County, Indiana in about 1834. So Janet has the West lineage back to the 1700s, but it hasn't been helpful. And Janet has created a database of Worley family members to try to fit in Elizabeth. And she has narrowed it down, she thinks, to Valentine Worley, who also came to Indiana about 1834, or his brother George, who went down to Tennessee. So Archibald died before Elizabeth, and both in Hendricks County, and they are both buried near other Worleys in the cemetery there in Hendricks County. She hasn't found a land record that would tell her if Elizabeth sold Archibald's land after his death, and she's looking for any out-of-the-box documentation from 1835 to her death in 1874. And additionally, she knows that Valentine had children out of wedlock, and Elizabeth could perhaps be his, though not provided for in his will in 1849, which was filed in Putnam County, Indiana. So, thoughts on this? Since they moved to Indiana about 1834, I thought the 1840 census in Hendricks County, Indiana. And also Valentine passed away. His will was, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back, 1849. So I might look at the 1850 mortality schedule. I don't know if that would give us any information, but it's one of those records out there. He may be on it. I would definitely check historic newspapers and court records in Hendricks County and various spellings of the Worley surname. And those were my thoughts. I imagine Janet's probably already checked most of those, if not all. So, do you have
I'd be
any
sure to
ideas?
look under, I'd look under the husband's potential name as well in the newspapers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. There might be land records recorded in the newspapers.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, because there are some newspapers I found in Indiana, and they actually will say they actually
Mm-hmm.
posted it in the newspaper, the land transfers.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
And I wonder if, because I was thinking if Elizabeth had land of Archibald's after his passing and she sold it before she died, would there be any mention of her parentage in that record? I'd almost, I'd probably look at Valentine's records.
Yeah.
If that's someone I zeroed in on. And if that wasn't working out, I'd probably look at George's records.
And I would look at all the kids
Yeah.
because maybe somehow there's a connection in there. And I
Mhm.
mean, and if the kids passed away later
And
on in the late 1800s, early
mhm.
1900s, or even mid, they might list the mother with the maiden name on there if they knew it.
Well, there might be a juicy obituary out there.
Yeah.
I know
You never know what you're going to find.
this is true. Yeah, so if there were out of wedlock children, I would follow those lines and see what records they might have left. It's sometimes it can be a bit of work to
You
flesh
just have
this
to
out.
dive in and look between the lines.
Yeah. Let me see. So if you out there have any ideas for Janet, feel free to share them in the comments. Anything out of the box. She's been looking for 40 years, so my guess is
Stacy wrote on here, I
oh,
found a few female ancestors in wills prior to 1850, but that's about it. I have a few women I think I'll never find. And if there's like a potential, like she said, she found it prior to 1850, you never know. It's like someone could have
mhm,
just somehow mentioned it.
this is true. It's sometimes the lineage is very straight and straightforward, and other times you you have to dig. Um, yeah, that's what I those are what I came up with for Janet's
And I
question.
would also add in to check the town's history. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
history is written up on the towns, and you never know.
Mm-hmm.
She could be mentioned in there.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Let's see. And one of the things I always, I guess I plug this all the time, is check the Historical Society in Hendricks County. Um, there is, I know we say this all the time, so much not online that are in these historical societies or libraries. Um, because it takes a lot of time to digitize everything. And there's just so much out there that's not online. And so, if you're able or can contact the society or hire a genealogist to poke around for you. Sometimes there's treasures in those files.
And treasures are being found all the time too, so you got to check that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so Janice. And I think Janice is here with us.
Yep, she's here.
Okay. Hi, Janice. She is the IGS Morgan County genealogist, and we thank her for that. And in doing that, if you have a question about Morgan County genealogy, she's the lady you contact. So her mystery is with her great-grandmother, Eva S. Myers Stouffer, also born in the early 19th century. And this was over in Ohio. And she married in 1857 in Butler County, Ohio. So she had a daughter, Matilda Kemp, and Matilda was born 1848. And she was born before Eva married Janice's great-grandfather. So not much is known about Matilda, and she'd like to know more. She's not sure if Eva was married before she married the great-grandfather or Matilda was born out of wedlock. And Janice traced Matilda's descendants and was able to find some of them living, contacted them under the surname Van Buskirk. And this fellow gave her contact info for another family member. And when she contacted that person, their response was kind of short and said that she had the wrong person. So Janice is, trying to find more about Matilda. And trying to find the father of Matilda. Matilda's kind of like what Janet said, a shadow in history. So I thought, check the 1850 census, Butler County, Ohio, and which I did have time. I found Matilda on that one with Eva, and they lived in the household of Eva's parents. Historic newspapers, court records in Butler County, Ohio. And then my question was Kemp a maiden or married name? And then my last thought was guardianship records. And by the time I thought of that, I didn't have any time to search around the internet. So I would wonder about guardianship records.
There's a lot of nicknames too for that, for Matilda, because there's Maddie, Tilly, Tilda. I've heard Maud and Millie. I would be checking those names too.
I looked on the 1860s census and I couldn't find them. And by that time, Eva was married to the great-grandfather. I found his name. So, but this was like 1880 and or Stouffer. So, I didn't find them on the 1860, I think. So,
well, then again, it's going to be going to the kids' death records to see if maybe they knew their mom's maiden name.
And I saw the Stouffers moved from Ohio out to Iowa. So I would say there's records to check in Ohio and possibly Iowa. And like you said, the other children's records. Because they may have mentioned Eva being married before.
And even some of their marriage information might mention it also.
Yeah. I
Janice
checked.
says these are great ideas. Oh, and she said
Thanks.
Indiana too is a
Okay.
possibility.
And Butler is on the west central part of Ohio, right on the Indiana Ohio state border. Um, I looked up the last name Kemp in 1850 in Butler County, and there was a gentleman who was the right age, and he was single at that time. So his name is David Kemp. So I don't know if that's anything possible.
Maybe.
Maybe. On the uh, Eva Myers, on the 1850 census, Matilda had the Myers last name. So I wasn't sure if Kemp was a maiden or married name. But those are my thoughts about Janice's.
So Janice has some ideas. Now she can go digging.
I like the Butler County, Ohio records. I've been there, and they have archives, and uh, I found some really interesting things there. They're just north of Cincinnati. So those are ideas I had for Janice.
Janice says, thanks. I'll go get a shovel.
Oh,
You'll have to let us
goodness.
know how you do, Janice.
Yes, please do. Very interesting. So those were our two questions. And yes, if anyone has any other ideas to crowd share in the comments, that would be awesome for these ladies. Let's see. Oh, and I did want to share about this book that John Marie and I both heard about this past week or so
On social media.
on social media. Yep. Yep. We both heard about it and we were talking about it before we went live. And that's how we had both seen it separately. So, but yes, there's a book called The Hidden Half of the Family, and it's a source book for women's genealogy. It was written in 1999 by Christina Schaefer and 310 pages long. So, I put some links where you could pick up a copy. I picked up a used copy at Abe Books, and I should get that later this week. So I'm kind of excited about that. If I come up with any ideas, I'll let the ladies know after I look through this book. So I thought I'd share that. And do we have any other questions or
No, not that I see it. Let me just double
comments?
check. No,
Okay.
I did not see any others.
All right. Let's see. Then, um, let's see if John Marie wants to share a little bit.
Yep.
Sure.
So next month I am going to be doing a Facebook Live on discovering your Hoosier roots using social media. So I'm going to provide some tips on how to actually use social media to maybe help you figure out where you can go to learn more about your ancestors, and also ways that you can connect to the community to try to get some help with some of these answers that you sometimes have. So I'm looking forward to sharing some of these tips, and that way you can just bring a little more value to social media instead of being on there just scrolling. I know we all do it. I'll admit it. But a lot of times when you go on with intention, then it really benefits you, and you learn how you can use it as a tool to help you with your genealogy research. So
Awesome. I know that's kind of like seeing that post about the book.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
that, I mean, yes, I admit it. I was scrolling social media and there it was. And I don't, I don't think I've been talking about finding female ancestors. I probably had been looking, this was before I did the AI request. So I think this came through my feed organically.
Right.
So that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great tool. Okay. Um, so um our next Ask the Hoosier Genealogists, marching through military records. So this is December 2nd at 6:30. Here on the IGS Facebook page as a live. Send your service-related questions to publications@indiegenes.org by November 15th. And we'll see if we can come up with any hints or tips to help you out.
And there's no dumb questions.
Mhm.
Because whatever question you have, please just share it. There's absolutely none. And if you don't want us to share your name, we won't.
Mhm.
But
This is
we
true.
just want the questions, because if you have a question, then someone else has that same question.
Exactly. Um, and if it's not military related, still send it in.
Mhm.
You know, whatever you are, is you're working on and you have questions about it, let us know. Because yeah, like John Marie says, we've probably all been there. And these recordings, these are recorded and they live on our IGS Facebook page for a month. And that right after this, within the next day or so, we take the recording and we upload it to our YouTube page where it lives forever or until they say we can't do that anymore. So yes, we take these and we take them from Facebook and put them on our IGS YouTube channel. So yes, just send your questions to me at publications@indiegenes.org. Um, our main goal here is to give guidance. We can't really do the research, we just don't have time. And we want you to have the experience of learning about your family history and unearthing these records. And because it's thrilling, when you're the one who gets to find this information. And we are meeting next Tuesday, 6:30 Eastern, for the IGS Writer SIG. So if you want to be on the email list, it's also publications@indiegenes.org. Just send your request to that email. And I have an email list where I will send out the Zoom link the day before or the day of. So that'd be next Tuesday. And then we meet in a Zoom room and we just talk about what we're writing. And next Tuesday, John Marie is going to share about story arc. So I think that's all I have for tonight.
Okay, I don't see any new questions. But if you guys are rewatching this or have questions later, always comment. We're always checking the comments to see if there's anything new, or if you have tips that you want to share, please feel free to share those tips. This is a community and we want to help each other. So the more we connect, the better we are able to discover our ancestors and get that support that we all need.
We save those stories.
Yep. Exactly.
Awesome. Thank you, John Marie.
All right. Thank you,
And
Kay. And we will
uh,
see you guys, well, hopefully at the Writer SIG. If not, we will see you guys next month.
Sounds good. And thanks to Janet and Janice. Bye, everyone.
Bye. That went pretty good.
Uh-huh. Let's see.